Okay, let's take a look at one more example, make sure we know all the terminology and how to find the correct percentages. Here we're looking at the two categories of taking a foreign language and playing an instrument. Is there an association between the two? So let's complete this by subtracting our values from our totals or adding up values to get totals. So you can start anywhere. So I'm going to subtract 12 from 16. Then we're going to add those up. That does give me my total of 70 that was surveyed. And then we're going to subtract that. And then here we can simply subtract 12 from 50. So this is our joint frequency, remember. These side ones are the marginal frequency, and that does not include the 70 that was surveyed. The total people surveyed was 70. So joint and marginal frequency. So now let's create a relative frequency table. And we're going to do it first by dividing by the total surveyed. So we're going to take all of these entries and divide it by 70 and then multiply it by 100. So you can pause the video and complete this. Here are the results. And again, we're going to round to the 10th. So of the people that were surveyed, 17% take a foreign language and play an instrument. Almost 6% do not take a foreign language, but they do play an instrument. 54, a little over half, take a foreign language, but do not play an instrument. And almost 23% do not take a foreign language and do not play an instrument. So now let's do a conditional relative frequency by row. And this is where we are dividing by the row totals. So I already have the answers here, but if you want to practice that on your own, we simply divided 12 by 16 and multiplied by 100. We took our 4 and divided it by 16 and multiplied by 100 to get this percent. On this row, we are going to divide by 54 and then multiply each of those by 100. So this relative frequency for rows would be if you were being asked of those who play an instrument. So the key word of those who play an instrument, what percent take a foreign language? And you would say 75%. Or I could say, of those who do not play an instrument, what percent do not take a foreign language? And that would be your 29.6%. So it is all about how the questions are worded and which frequency table, relative frequency table you will use. Sometimes you will use the conditional relative frequency for rows. Sometimes it will be for columns, and sometimes it's going to be for the whole table. Again, it depends on the way the question is worded. That's what you have to decide which to use. Which table are you going to use? This one is our conditional relative frequency by column. So this time we are dividing our part by the total of the column. So here we're dividing these entries by 50 and multiplying by 100 to get these percentages. This column we are dividing by 20 and then multiplying by 100 to get these percentages. So this table would be used if a question were asked such as, of those surveyed that do not take a foreign language, what percent play an instrument? And that would be 20%. Or you could be asked, of those that take a foreign language, what percent do not play an instrument? And that would be 76%. So according to that question, if you take a foreign language, I can predict that you probably will not play an instrument because there's a big gap between 24% and 76%. Also, there is a big gap between 20% and 80%. So there is a strong association of not taking a foreign language, and not playing an instrument. So which table should be used? So this is a good summary that you should jot in your notes. You're going to use just the simple two-way frequency table when answering questions for total count, like if you were asked how many people were surveyed or how many people play an instrument or how many people take a foreign language and play an instrument. So this is just an actual count. A two-way relative frequency table is when you're answering questions for total percentages. If it's very specific and it uses a column heading, then you're going to use the two-way conditional relative frequency for columns. So it will be prepped typically at the beginning of the question, and it will label the column. Or it could be a two-way conditional relative frequency for rows when you're determining association between the row headings. So again, this is a good summary table to jot down because again, with statistics and answering the questions, it's all in how you interpret and process the wording of the question. So in this, if we were to use the conditional relative frequency by column, which is what this is, the question would be, is there an association between those who take a foreign language? Do they play an instrument or not? So this is all about the folks that take a foreign language or those that don't take a foreign language. Is there an association of taking a foreign language and playing an instrument? And again, we said there is a big enough gap between these two percentages to say there is a strong association. So if you take a foreign language, I can predict that you probably don't play an instrument. This one, we are using the row conditional relative frequency by row. So this is focusing on playing an instrument or not playing an instrument. So of those folks that do not play an instrument, is there an association if they take a foreign language or not? So if you do not play an instrument, I can predict, or I can say there is an association that you do take a foreign language because there is a big enough gap between these two percentages. And the same here.